Tadparam Paryaya Vidmahi Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruh Prachodayate Om. Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Puduvai Kalaimamani Puduvai Shakti Yogacharya Amma Ji Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani Guru Mata Ki Jai. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Namaste, Swagatam, Vanakkam, Bonjour, Buongiorno, Buonasera, Buonanotte, Huya, More, Boreida, Kiora, Salamat Pagi, Ayubovan, Ayushman Bhava, Suprapal, Shubdinam, Salom. Welcome to today's Scintillating Saturday. We started a few weeks ago looking at the magnificent teachings, the timeless teachings through the lens of Pranayama. Okay? That's what we started. And today we are going to try in the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes or so to at least touch the surface of the teachings given to us by the great Maharishi Patanjali. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. Om. And what is the context? What is the context of all these teachings? Atha yoganushasanam. Atha yoganushasanam. In the present moment, we start to explore, we start to live the teachings, those teachings of yoga that are a discipline. We begin the discipline of yoga. That is the context. In that context, we have the context of the Ashtanga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhaya, Ashtau Angani. Okay? So that is the context. We have taken a look at Asana and we have understood that Asana is a state of being where we move from doing to being. We are established in a steady state, a dynamic steady state where we have sthirata and sukhata. And then at that point, he says, tasmin. So what he means is, in order to actually explore pranayama, one needs to have at least a basic level of stability and ease. That sthirata and sukhata, stability and ease, is a prerequisite. Because if you are unstable and uneasy with yourself, what are you going to do? That is why Swamiji so beautifully told us, do the first things first. That's Swamiji Sutras. Do the first things first. The second things will come second. And the final things will happen on their own. Swamiji Sutras. He says, Tasmin, when he introduces in the Sadhana Pada, the second of the padas of the Yoga Sutras, he introduces the concept of pranayama. The 49th verse of the Sadhana Pada. Tasmin. So tasmin means that you have to have been working on this. You don't start off at pranayama. Okay, you have to be working on finding that stability and ease within yourself. And he says, while that's going on, when that's going on, and when you have sort of started to get that feel at that point, we can start to explore what pranayama is. Tasmin sati shwasa prashwasa yor gati vichedah pranayamah. Tasmin sati, having attained to some extent the previous state of stability and ease, we now start to process the two events that are happening. Shwasa prashwasa. Shwasa is the manifestation of the prana coming into us. We looked at the modulations of the energy in prana last time. The prana coming into us, the shwasa, and the prana going out, prashwasa. So the prana coming in is related to the inspiration, inhalation, and the prana going out is related to the expiration, the exhalation. So the two processes of respiration, inhalation, exhalation, inspiration, expiration, bringing the spirit in, letting the spirit go out, we had looked at that. This is how the process of prana is. You are starting to become mindful of the flow of prana. Shwasa prashwasa. And you start to realize there is something called a gati. A gati, which is the gate. In Sanskrit, G-A-T-I. You change the I and T, G-A-I-T, and you get the English meaning of gati. The pattern, the rhythmic pattern through which the processes are occurring. The rhythmic pattern, the tala. What is this tala? Hamsa sohams. The ajapa japa that is going on, the ajapa gayatri that's going on. Soham, soham, hamsa, hamsa. This is going on. Hamsa soham is going on. There is a pattern. Just like there is a pattern of your heart, there's a pattern to the whole day. It's called the circadian rhythm. Sleep-wake cycle. Circadian rhythm. Circa is the time of a diem of a day. So around the time of a day, 24-hour cycles are circadian rhythm. Rhythms that are shorter than that are called ultradian rhythms, like the nasal cycle. Every 2 to 3 hours, the nasal patterns are changing. It's called the nasal cycle, which is an ultradian rhythm, shorter than 24 hours. And then rhythms that are longer than 24 hours are called infradian rhythms, like the menstrual cycle is the best example. So there are all these rhythms of life: circadian rhythms, ultradian rhythms, infradian rhythms. And one of the important rhythms is the rhythmic process of inhalation, exhalation, enabling us to experience the prana coming in and going out, the potential becoming kinetic, kinetic becoming potential, as we saw in the last lesson. So he says this is going on. But he says, what is actual pranayama? First you have to become aware of it. Once you become aware of it, what do you need to do? You need to transcend it. Because yoga in its real nature, Swarupa, is all about transformation and transcendence. It's not about how long you can hold your breath or stand on your head. That's secondary. Transformation of the individual leading to transformation of humanity. Transcendence of the mundane for that which is subtler, and then the subtler for the sake of that which is the causal source of all. Gati is there. Shwasa prashwasa, your gati. There is a rhythmic pattern, and he says you have to go beyond it. Going beyond the processes of inhalation and exhalation is actually what pranayama is all about. Contrast this with the modern understanding of pranayama as breathing exercise. So the more you breathe, the more pranayama you are doing. Well, not really. Not really. Because according to Maharishi Patanjali, you are going through the process in order to go beyond the process. Transcendence doesn't happen on its own. You have to go through it to transcend it. You have to go through the gunas to go to gunatita. Yes, Nehru. Similarly, you have to go through Shwasa Prashwasa to go into the Shwasa Prashwasa Tita state. Atita. Dehatvaya Atitaha. Kalatvaya Atitaha. You have to go beyond it, but you have to go through it. It's not escapism. It is transformation. So what we are doing here is, the pranayama is the methodology by which you work with the breath, but ultimately the goal is to transcend the breath, and that transcendence of the breath itself becomes the state of pranayama, where you are no longer driven by the survival instinct. The brainstem is constantly telling you, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. You are in survival mode. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. The rhythmic pattern. The rhythmic pattern, rhythmic pattern, rhythmic patterns going on always. The brainstem is sending its pattern. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe out, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And the pattern's going on and the rhythm is going on. And what is this? All of this is driven by the brainstem. And then you say, I have had enough of you being in control of my life. I am going to make the choice to decide how I will breathe and go beyond the process. You have to first understand the process. You have to work through the process, and then you are ready to go beyond the process. Tasmin sati shwasa prashwasa yogati vichedah pranayama. That is how the process comes. So whenever we think of pranayama in the context of Maharishi Patanjali's teachings, pranayama is the transcendence of the processes of inhalation and exhalation. Because as long as you are bound by the inhalation and exhalation, you are caught in the survival mode. You are caught in the unconscious, subconscious mode. But you want to move through the conscious mode into the superconscious mode. That is the transcendence we want. How do you transcend in consciousness? Well, you need to start transcending the process of respiration. Our breath is the key element here. Changing the way we breathe from autonomic control to cortical control based on the power of choice. I am going to decide how long I breathe, how deep I breathe, how often I breathe, or if I don't breathe. Well, you are regaining the cortical control by the power of choice. This is the first of the sutras he talks about. Tasmin sati shwasa prashwasa yor gati vicheda pranayama. Because as long as your brainstem is driving your life, you are like, oh my God, if I don't breathe, I'll die. And then you say, well, I can hold my breath and I don't die. I can regulate my breath. I can slow it down. People are scared. If you say, well, you need to breathe about 6 times per minute, they're like, oh my God, 6 times, so less. I'm like, just think about it. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not difficult at all. Come on. And the moment you start to slow down the respiration by the power of choice, the moment you start to not be limited by the processes of respiration, but you are starting to regulate them. They are not regulating you, you are regulating them. That is where you start to take control. And that is where the process of transformation and transcendence starts. Patanjali then goes on to tell us in the next sutra, 50. He talks about a few aspects which are quite practical actually if you think about them. He says, Bahya Abhyantara Stamba Vritti. There's a beautiful concept here. One is the process can be external, bahya. It can be internal, abhyantara. And it can be stupefied, steady, as in stamba vritti, like a pillar. Like a pillar. So, bahya, the externalized process, the internalized process, and the process that has been stopped, the steady state. Here, there are many interpretations. People talk about holding the breath out, holding the breath in. These type of aspects come, that the inspiration is internal, expiration is external, holding the breath in kumbhaka is the stamba vritti. There are a lot of interpretations. But what actually is being implied here is, you actually have three methodologies to work with. One is the process of inhalation. So you start to understand what is happening in you as the prana comes into you. This is the antara. You start to be aware of what happens when the prana is going out of you. That is the bahya. And you start to understand when you hold the breath in kumbhaka or shunyaka, what is happening? The stamba vritti. So last time we have looked at these modulations, how potential becomes kinetic, kinetic becomes potential. It is something very similar to this, that we can understand what is this prana by understanding the processes and applications. These are the applications that we are using. Similarly, you can think about it in another way. There are the practices that are very externalized in nature. They are the breathing exercises. They are the bahya type. There are the samyama pranayamas where you are becoming introspectional and you are trying to understand yourself. You are trying to understand what is happening in you. They start to become the abhyantara type. And then there are the pranayamas that are working with the shakti, the kundalini itself. They become the stamba vritti type. Swamiji talks about three classifications of pranayamas: the adamas, the madhyamas or samyama, and the uttanas or shakti pranayamas. It can be understood in so many different interpretations. And he says this process, bahya abhyantara stamba vritti, it can be then taken further by focusing on different component aspects. The component aspects include desha kala sankhya bihi. So you can look at the desha. What is the place where it is happening? Now this can be an externalized place. Are you in the mountains? Are you in the, next to the ocean? That is an externalized desha. It can be that part of you in the body. For example, when we do adama pranayama, we are working on the adama desha. That part of the lung which becomes the adama desha. Madhyama desha, adhyama desha starts to become a desha also. So what is the place? It could be the geographical indicator, or it could be the inner anatomical geographical indicator also. You can also often ask people, where are you when you are doing it? Mentally, what is the place you are in? What is your desha mentally when you are doing it? What is your emotional desha when you are doing it? What is your spiritual desha when you are doing the practices? So it's not only an externalized geographical indicator when we say desha. Similarly, kala. Kala can be the externalized season, summer, winter, monsoon. All of that can be the Vasanta Kala, spring. It can be all of that. Recently, Vasanta Panchami was celebrated. Springtime. So it could be the externalized Kala. It could be the internalized Kala. What is your cycle? What is your own cyclic pattern of the Kala? These are the yantric cycles that are going on. Are you in a 1 cycle year, 2 cycle year? What is your minor? So like the yantric cycles, they will start to influence how the pranayama sadhana is going forward. It could even be your age. Your age could also be a kala. Your menstrual cycle, ritu kala, it could be What phase of menstruation are you in? Proliferative phase or the secretive phase? Is it estrogen driven? Is it progesterone driven? All of these are kala. Are you in one of those phases of time where you are exuberant, or is it a phase of time where you are very depressed, or are you composed? All of these are part of that kala. And then Sankhya. What is the type of counts that are used? You know, when Swamiji talks about Pranayama, and especially like Savitri, each of the talas, whether you do it as 2-1 or 4-2 or 6-3-8-4 or go up to 16-8 or even up to 32-16, each one of these is a ratio. Each one of these is a count. Each of these is a unit of measurement with which you are evaluating your own sadhana, and you are working on different parts of you. The Sankhya Bihi. So whenever we are looking at pranayama, we could look at the externalized aspect, the internalized aspect, or the steady state aspect. We could look at how the place, the season, the timing, the counts affect the person. But we could also understand all of this at an internalized level also. And paridrishtav, dirgha sukshmaha. This could be dirgha. Dirgha means deep. Sukshma is subtle. So this process may be a process which is a state where you are, for example, this is described as breathing deeply or breathing lightly. Because not all pranayama is about deep breathing. Because remember Patanjali's concept, gati vichcheda. So the ultimate pranayama is where you go beyond it. That is where the chaturtha is going to come in the next one. So here you are looking at what happens when I breathe. So the amount of breath, the depth of the breath, the gross versus subtle aspects of the breath, all of these are going to be part of this sadhana. Where are you doing it? Where? Externally, internally. What is the time phase? Externally, internally. What is the count? Externally, internally. What is the depth? Externally, internally. Because sukshma is not just subtle in the sense of the light breathing. Sukshma is also going into the subtler aspects of understanding prana. Prana has multiple dimensions. The basic dimension that enables your body to move. Fingers are moving, it's prana. But then the mind is also moving. There is prana. The emotions are also moving. The spirit is moving. All the subtlest of subtle aspects of prana you start to explore through this. Bhahya abhyantara stamba vritti desha kala sankhya bihi paridhrishtav dirgha sukshmaha. What beautiful structure has been given. Guidelines have been given. But then he goes on to say, the next one, Bhahya Abhyantara. He says, beyond this Bhahya and Abhyantara, beyond the Bhahya Abhyantara, we are having Vishayakshepi Chaturtaha. There is something beyond it, the fourth state. People call it the fourth pranayama. And so people went around saying, oh, Patanjali teaches 4 pranayamas. Patanjali doesn't teach 4 pranayamas. Don't misquote him. He'll have to come and have a press conference and say, I've been misquoted by all these people. Seriously, if Patanjali had to give a press conference, we all would be hiding under our beds. We have misquoted him so badly over the millennia. Chaturtaha is the fourth state. The fourth state. Now, if you look at consciousness, we have what is called Jagrat, waking consciousness. We have something called Swapna, dream state consciousness. Shushupti, the dreamless consciousness. And then we have something called Turiya, which is the transcendental state of consciousness. So you have wakeful, dream, dreamless, and then the fourth state, the Turiya. Of course, in Indian culture, you have to have everything Atita beyond that. So Turiya, Atita, we go. That Chaturtaha is that state which he has already told us about. You remember? Shwasa prashwasa yor gati vichcheda. The gati vichcheda, You are going beyond all of these processes. So in the earlier sutra, he said, Bahya abhyantara stamba vritti desha kala sankhya bihi paridrishtau dirga sukshmaham. These are the processes. And then he says, but there is a state beyond the processes where you outgrow the processes. Remember we said you have to go through the process to go beyond it? Going through the processes has been described. Now the going beyond. He says, you think it is only this much, but no, it is beyond that. There is a state that goes beyond it. This state is called Kevala Kumbhaka. Now he doesn't use the word Kevala Kumbhaka because Kevala Kumbhaka is a Hatha Yoga concept. But Kevala Kumbhaka and this Chaturtaha are synonymous in many, many ways. Because Kevala Kumbhaka is the spontaneous cessation of respiration. So it is not when you sit and you go, I'm going to hold my breath. No, that's not Kevala Kumbhaka. Kevala Kumbhaka is a spontaneous cessation of respiration. So there is no, you are not holding the breath stops on its own. Well, the only time this happens for most people is when they die. Spontaneous cessation of respiration is when you die. Well, the yogis say, why die for it? Have the experience when you're alive and you can live with that experience. Kevala Kumbhaka is a state where through your sadhana practice, through your pranayama sadhana, you have elevated your consciousness to such a level, you do not have to breathe anymore because you have transcended the survival instinct of abhinivesha klesha. Abhinivesha klesha, the desire to survive at any cost, drives the respiratory center. But you have come to a state where you are not bothered about survival anymore. If you are not bothered about survival, you are not limited by the breath anymore. You transcend, people can stop eating, people can stop drinking, and then there's a state you stop breathing. What a beautiful state of being where you are not bound by all these reflexes that are meant to keep you alive. All the reflexes are meant for your survival. And so you are always reflexive. You are always reactionary. You are limited by the brainstem activities, the spinal cord activities, the subconscious, unconscious activities, the conditioning of the samskara, vasana. And through your sadhana, you start to transcend all of this. No wonder it is called Kevala Kumbhaka, like Kaivalya. A state of liberation from the necessity to breathe. Because you realize that once you connect with the cosmos, autopilot, you don't need to be there doing something. You don't need to be doing something because it's all done. It's like that state where initially, many people, when anything goes wrong, they blame others. So something goes wrong, you blame others. That is the first level. Something goes wrong, you share the blame. Second level. Something goes wrong, you take the whole blame. The next level. And then there comes a level you realize nothing's happened. That state of realizing nothing's happened, why are we all worked up about it? That is the equivalent of that Kevala Kumbhaka. I've often wondered, we have a phrase in English, we say, it took my breath away. That experience was so awesome. It was so awesome. It was so inspiring. It took my breath away. Now, when you elevate your consciousness and when you have that darshan of the biggest of big pictures, when you have that darshan of the cosmos itself, that Vishwarupa darshanam like Arjuna has, or that beautiful darshan that Ma Yashoda has when Krishna opens his mouth. Once you have seen the cosmos, once you have experienced that highest, what else will happen but your breath will be taken away? You don't feel the need to breathe anymore. You don't need the survival instinct anymore because you have realized what is to be realized. And in that moment, Kevala Kumbhaka occurs. There is no real duration of Kevala Kumbhaka Neru. It's a state. And Gurulin, it's not really after inhalation or exhalation, it just happens. It's a state of being. So it's not another pranayama. This whole idea that Kevala Kumbhaka is another pranayama is where we have missed the bus. It's a state of being where you have transcended the breath itself. It's a state of being of understanding the bigger picture. You are no longer dependent on the breath for survival. Now, when we are doing our practices, we try to have an experience of Kevala Kumbhaka. We try to have an experience of Kevala Kumbhaka, and that experience often happens after you have been doing, regularly your pranayama sadhana and you have been working with it, and you will find those moments where suddenly for a minute or two, you don't feel the need to breathe. You're just there in a breathless state. This is a experience like the trailer. This is like a trailer of the biggest picture. It's not the biggest picture yet. But especially after we have done practices like Bhastrika, Kapalbhati, what we start to experience is that we don't feel the need to breathe for some time. This can be explained physiologically also, and maybe I'll spend one Saturday on this. But for me, more than anything, this is a state of being. Kevala Kumbhaka is a state of being. That Chaturtaha is a state of being. Kapalbhati, because of washing out of the carbon dioxide, the brainstem, doesn't get so activated. So there is a physiological basis to that experience. But what can also happen is that you start to breathe slower and slower. So that instead of breathing 15, 20 times a minute, you start to breathe 6 times a minute, then you breathe 2 or 3 times a minute, then you breathe once a minute, you start to breathe 1 in 3 minutes. So what starts to happen is when you are breathing once in 3 minutes and all, automatically that space is starting to be created. There's a space of no breathness. These are milder forms. These are like the trailers. These are like the tasters, the appetizers of Kevala Kumbhaka. But they're not Kevala Kumbhaka. Kevala Kumbhaka is a state of being where we have transcended the need to breathe at all. Your breath has been taken away by the grandeur of that universal experience, a state of samadhi itself. So coming back, Patanjali has given us this beautiful framework. Shwasa prashwasayor gati vichcheda pranayama, where you are transcending these patterns that are normally keeping you alive, you are transcending them. How do you transcend them? You go through the process. Bahya, Abhyantara, Stambha, Vritti, focusing on Desha, Kala, Sankhya, Bihi, and the Dirgha, Sukshma, and all that. And then you come to the state, which is the 4th state, a Turiya state, Atita state. And then he says, what happens because of this? He gives us 2 teachings. He says, Tatakshiyate prakashavaranam. When this happens, the covering, that is blocking the light. We all are beings of light. Don't let anybody tell you you are cursed. Do not let anybody tell you you are not the divine, okay? Every one of us, however good or bad we are, the divinity is there, the light is there. Every one of us is a being of light. Every one of us is a being of light. But you know what? Often that light is covered in huge dark shrouds, huge dark blankets. So nobody knows there's light, and even we don't know there's light because everybody has told us there's no light in you. Don't let anybody tell you there's no light in you, please. That is one time I'll excuse you from ahimsa. You can punch them in the nose. If somebody says you don't have the light, punch them in the nose, and then they'll see the light. Every one of us has the spark of the divine in us. Every one of us. Even those people who you hate, they have the spark of the divine. Even the people you love, they have the spark of the divine. Yes, your neighbor has the spark of the divine. And yes, your spouse, your partner, that one with whom you fight every day, yes, they also have the spark of the divine, and you have the spark of the divine. All of us have it. That light is there. That prakasha is there. That prakasha is there. But the problem is we don't know it. Why? Avidya, ignorance. We are looking for the light outside. We have forgotten we are the sun. We think we are the moon. We think we are the moon. We depend on other people's light. No, we are our own light. And that is why the role of the guru is to enable the shishya, the chela, to know that they have that light within them and put them off on that rocket trajectory. Yes, Sushant, in meditation, yes, in dhyanam, as the mind becomes still, Kevala Kumbha can happen. Very true. Very true. These are experiences that we get. These are experiences we get. So Patanjali is telling us, he says, Prakasha is covered. There is an avaranam, there is a covering. Now our translators have called it the veil covering the light. No veil, it's a shroud, it's a dark blanket. It's a cement lead wall. We have put up this lead wall around our light, so nobody can see it. Even an X-ray cannot perceive it because it's lead. What we need to do, break that wall down. Tear up that blanket. Destroy that shroud that is covering your light. That is why the word kshiyate is used. Destruct. Not just remove. You have to destruct it. You have to eradicate it. Because it is not letting you know that you are the light. You are not able to know you are the light because of it. Get rid of it. Tata kshiyate prakashavaranam. Why? Why do we not know? Because we have been bound by avidya, ignorance. What is avidya? It is a klesha. And what is it driving? Abhinivesha. Remember the brainstem breathing? You are locked in survival, so you do not know there is a life. You don't know better. Because you have been conditioned that the autonomic nervous system will take care of you. Someone will do it for you. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. If you want health, do healthy things. If you want to be happy, do happy things. If you want to be spiritual, do spiritual things. If you want to be elevated, do things that elevate you, not depressing things. See, we have to take control. This is where it has to change from this part, me. It has to come to thee. The buddhi has to come. We have to shift from the me-centric consciousness to the we, to the we. And we realize that we are all one. When you move from limitation to delimitation, from limitation to freedom, bondage to freedom, this bondage is saying there's no light in you. So we'll keep on breathing for you. We'll keep on eating for you. We'll keep on thinking for you. We'll keep on... No. Suddenly this says, I am the master of my own destiny. I will regain. What Swamiji says, I will regain. I will claim my birthright of health and happiness. And I will work towards the goal, which is liberation. And that is why the shift, that shift from here to here, and suddenly you see the light. Suddenly you see the light. Suddenly you realize, and that is why you empower yourself. That nuclear power that is in you, the switch has been turned on. And once it's turned on, well, rocket thrust into the highest of highest space. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yes, Gita, Swamiji's common state. Just keep going straight and you are empowered. Not by somebody else, by your own self-effort. Self-effort is the currency of spiritual growth. Remember that. Tatakshiyate prakashavaranam. What happens is suddenly you realize you have clarity. And this is why the pranayama sadhana enables us to have clarity about our own life. You know, whenever you are confused, whenever you are muddled up, we are always muddled up. We are a muddled up species. We are always running around in circles. The COVID pandemic is a good example of that. We have no idea what we are doing. We just run around in circles and try to do what somebody else has done, hoping that it will work out better. How we are constantly looking outside. And through pranayama, you start to realize you have all the answers within you. You have the answers within you. Don't go seeking outside. Go in. Once that light comes on, you start to see what lies within you. Till then you were searching outside. You thought you were dependent on others. You thought you were dependent on somebody else's guidance. No. The Guru Sakshat, that inner Guru lies within us. Once that light comes on, we start to realize how every thought, every word, every action of ours is creating our destiny. We start to take responsibility for it. And at that moment he says, Dharana sucha yogyata manasaha. Our consciousness, our mind, our very being becomes fit for concentration, etc. Dharana sucha yogyata. You attain yogyata. Yogyata is to have that worthy. I have talked about worthiness quotient in the past. Yogyata quotient. We have to have that worthiness quotient, WQ, along with IQ, EQ, SQ. WQ is the worthiness quotient. Are we worthy of our aspirations? Or are we trying to beg, borrow and steal to get into where we want to be? Making ourselves fit for the experience is the way we have to go forward. Dharana sucha yogyata manasaha. Because everybody thinks, oh, I will go straight into samadhi, I'll go straight into meditation, dhyanam. No. First things first. We have to be worthy of that. Because dharana is not just concentration. Dharana is the ability to bind the mind, bind the consciousness to one place at one time. Desha bandha chittasya dharana. You have to bind your consciousness to one place and hold it there. Not just concentration. And that is why we have made such big mistakes in our translations. One pointed, focused concentration is sort of a better way to put it. One pointed, focused concentration. It's a big phrase. But just concentration is not dharana. Dharana implies the fact that there is a binding. For that binding to happen, you need to be worthy, you need to have strength, you need to have capacity, you need to have the light to focus on something. You have to be fit for it. That is what pranayama gives us. That is why without pranayama sadhana, There cannot be an experience of dhyanam. Everybody wants to meditate. You can close your eyes and sit quietly. That you can do. But it is not dhyanam. Because to be fit for that, you have to be worthy. People just come in for the first yoga class and they say, I want to learn meditation. Why you want to learn meditation? I heard it's easy. The biggest joke. Meditation is easy. Wow. A sucker is born every minute. Yeah. Meditation is easy. Seriously. You can close your eyes and sit quietly, okay? That's good for you. That's definitely good for you. But don't call it meditation. That's for another day. We become fit for the antaranga sadhana. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the samyama sadhana. We become fit. Pranayama enables us to become fit for the internal aspects. You cannot just go and have the internal aspects because you have, paid the fees for your monthly yoga class. Paying your fees doesn't make you worthy. Self-effort makes you worthy. Paying your fees is one part of it. I'm not saying don't pay your teachers. Okay. Support your teachers, support each other. Support those who are doing good, okay? For sure, support those who are doing good. Have that mudita punya approach. But you have to earn it. Self-effort is the currency of spiritual growth. You have to earn it. Pranayama sadhana is the means by which we can earn that worthiness quotient. That worthiness quotient that makes us worthy of the internal journey. So the 5 sutras that we have looked at today in a very superficial manner, each one of these is worth one separate Saturday. But I'm trying to sort of just give you a glimpse of it. Tasmin sati shwasa prashwasayor gati vicheda pranayama. Bahya abhyantara stamba vritti desha kala sankhyabihi paridhrishtav dirga sukshmaha. Bahya abhyantara vishaya kshepi chaturtah tatakshiyate prakashavarnam Dharana sucha yogyata manasa. What beautiful teachings, timeless teachings from Maharishi Patanjali. Teachings that are life transforming and transcending. Just remember, yoga is all about transformation and transcendence. The rest of it is the peanuts and candy. But the real thing is transformation and transcendence. May you be blessed wherever you are. Be a blessing wherever you are, and may you be blessed. Have a wonderful time. Ayushman Bhava, Ayu Bhovan, and be the best you. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you. Nandri. Vanakkam.